The chat around Liverpool's brand new striker is growing, and there is very much a PR campaign around leaving the club through with Darwin Núñez. I'm feeling good about it. He's been saying nice things, this title is for you, all these kind of things, making all the right noises for a guy who's going to leave relatively soon. But hey, we won a title during the time you were here. Hey, we finished top of the Champions League group in the time you were here. Hey, you did that Newcastle double to help us come back. But ultimately, he's not the profile of player that we need in terms of mentality, but also in terms of the fit. And I think it's become quite clear that obviously at some point he's going to be leaving the club. Step in Ekitike, Hugo, great name, and Sesko, Benjamin. Which name do I prefer? I think they're both very good names. But at the same time, I also think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that they are both strikers who are just on the cusp of potentially something brilliant. But at the same time, what that leads to is incredible amounts of high potential and incredible amounts of doubt. Both of them cut very different figures out on the field, and I'm interested to know, frankly, what you guys think is Liverpool's route in the future. Mainly because we know Darwin Núñez is leaving. But we also know Chiesa will probably leave this summer. There are big shouts around Jota leaving. That's 3 of the front 6 that we felt so confident about at the start of this season leaving. Changing fundamentally the way that Liverpool can shift games. Now, I'm not saying that in every game Jota has been the most reliable striker. I think even by his own admission, he has said, I'm 70, 80% of where I want to be right now. And because of what he's done, because of what he's achieved, I can very much A, forgive that, and B, get on board with just the fact that we've got to support this guy. But at the same time, I also remember with, say, Chiesa, I've seen some really good performances from him, but he's never been fit enough. He's never been, he would have played, frankly, if he was good enough and if he was ripping it up in other places. But he struggled to ever get fitness together. He struggled to ever get the profile within the team that he needs. And I also think, frankly, there have been other players ahead of him who we think are slightly more effective. Doesn't mean he hasn't played critical parts. We remember him in multiple times where, he played in the cup, or I think he played against Brentford and was kind of responsible for forcing the ball down their throats a little bit when Núñez scored those 2 goals. It was great. And then you've got someone like, I think Diaz stayed. I think Liverpool now might offer Diaz a more permanent deal. And I think probably because of the financial situation in Spain, we might not see Luis Diaz leave, especially as Liverpool want big money for Luis Diaz if they were to, anyway. Gakpo, I think, stays. Although, again, someone comes in with the right offer for any of these players, I think Liverpool are considering it because they'll know there are other big people. All of that lays the foundation for who is our new striker who's coming in. Well, on one side, we have Ekitike. We've got a guy who's very technically proficient. He's definitely a hyper-mobile forward, right? He's someone who likes to drift in wide, to an extent similar to someone like Cody Gakpo, and to receive the ball and then run at defenders. Again, there is a similarity between him and Cody Gakpo, but the way that he carries the ball is slightly different. And I think the position he enters in the end is slightly more central than where Gakpo's at. And he also likes to go a little bit further down the field with the ball. I think that's fair enough. He's silky, similar to Cody Gakpo, and he's also got that little bit of flair. Maybe in a different way to Cody Gakpo. I think Gakpo is slightly more industrial in the way that he does it, but he's still, he's a creative striker in the way that Cody Gakpo is. Juxtapose that with your more traditional, as I would call him, number 9, Benjamin Sesko. Now, maybe that's only because Benjamin Sesko has been given this kind of role because of the clubs he's been at. Benjamin Sesko, let me just type this in just to make sure that I know. I've literally just typed in Benjamin. I don't think he's ever really played a club where it's like, hey, you're at the very top of the game here. He's played at Red Bull, he's played at Leipzig, and now he's at Leipzig. Those are all developmental shifts and moves for him, which ultimately I think have gone well because he's now in a position where he'll probably get bought by someone this summer. But equally, none of them are kind of, it's not about him being his ultimate end goal. Yes, he is that more classic number 9. I think that's where Leipzig have kind of played towards those strengths. But at the same time, when I've seen him play, and I have seen him play a couple of times at just Champions League games that I've been to, Liverpool haven't necessarily played them at games I've been to, but other teams have, like your Cities and those kind of guys. You see his combination with other players, you see his interplay, and you see it the smart way that he, like I say, he's more traditional number 9, but he enables the other players going off him. I wouldn't say he's more like a Bobby Firmino, but I think because Bobby Firmino is a very unique and kind of eloquent, I would guess, striker. But I think Liverpool at times have lacked that guy who has the confidence to be able to force the ball into the net. Liverpool don't really have a big problem in carrying the ball to the goal. It's then forcing the ball into the back of the net after that I think is really key. And having a striker who's basically headstrong enough and confident enough to get the ball in the net. He's much more direct. He's obviously tall. I think he's 6'5". Ekitike is tall himself. He's 6'2". But 6'5" is like, we're talking about a profile of a rangy striker. And he's much more of an aerial duel kind of guy than a ball carrier in the traditional sense. Does that make sense? Anyway, I don't think he's built like Haaland in that way, but he's obviously big and he is strong and Haaland's a very unique player, but you get what I'm saying. And he's got this big, I wouldn't describe him as explosive, but I would describe him as powerful. And I think that works. And I think could really work for Liverpool, frankly. I think could be a really big asset for us in the coming season, especially as people like Arsenal look at him. I think he'd probably be available for a very reasonable price. I think Ekitike, if I'm being honest, is slightly overpriced at the moment. I think he's a great player, but if they're asking for 100 million, I'm not paying that. Benjamin Sesko, 50 to 60, I feel like that's much more reasonable and very much means that we can rebuild in other areas where we will have to rebuild this summer. I would describe Benjamin Sesko as, again, more of a Premier League type striker. And I'm not putting Ekitike down with that. But what I mean by that is there is the power, there is the willing to jostle with opposition. And Ekitike is more of a, I'll get around you, I'm going to move around you and I'll leave you. Which one do we want Slot to have? Maybe he actually wants both. And maybe this summer we are going for two different profiles. Maybe we get more than one person, especially if we are going to move Jota on and we're going to move on a Chiesa, someone like that. As we've seen, injuries are really kind of a big part of, have been a big part of this season actually, and with the system Liverpool's been able to play. But I want, it's hard to work out what Slot's going to do next, because his tactics were an amalgamation of what Klopp played, but also what Slot wants to do. And the verticality of what Sesko offers very much feels like a Klopp kind of player. And the Ekitike side of things, I think we've already kind of got that profile in our team. Why do we want to bring that in again? Do we not want variation? Do we not want someone who we think could fit? And also, do we not, Sesko is great. Obviously, I think, he's built in a very specific way, so he gets kind of burned down to just being that big man. I think Liverpool probably profile all these people, including Ekitike, and go, well, what is it this guy brings? What can will Salah be able to play off him? If we were to get another winger on the left, would they be able to play off him? Would Diaz be able to play off him? Would Gakpo be able to play off him? If we brought in another 10, which we seem very interesting, like the Javi Simmons kind of people, what's his interaction with those kind of people? And then you look at I think broadly, we don't need someone to drop as much as Ekitike would. We would play Jota and he does drop, but he doesn't drop in the way that Ekitike would. And we probably need someone like Sesko to drop, receive the ball, and then be running on. He's going to be making those vertical runs, those sharp movements. He's positioned himself much more like that kind of traditional Premier League striker, and I like that. And I think we've seen Ekitike develop. Obviously, he's been sold on from PSG, where he had what I would describe as limited minutes. But then I'd say the opposite for Sesko, where Sesko's had a lot of minutes. He's moved within a system which has developed him, and a system which broadly has worked very well in the past for us when buying, RB players, frankly. Not only that, but obviously, hey, if we can go and negotiate with Klopp, and Klopp can do us a nominal payment, good deals, great deals. Ekitike might be a bit more fluid, and sure, that's fine. Not every player has to be fluid in order to fit into Slot's system. And I think Sesko does have that. He's more direct. I think he could be adapted, and I think if Liverpool go for him, they definitely feel he will be adapted. But he feels like that bit more of a focal point. And I'll be honest, focal point is what we've lacked a lot this season up front. Ekitike is not that focal point player in the same way as Sesko is. He's much more of a deep combination player. Whereas I think Sesko is much more of that traditional. It's reductive, sure, but I think it works. And I think, especially, I've been to quite a few games this season where we lacked that. We lacked that against Brentford where I was there. We lacked that against Villa when we drew 2-2 with them at Villa Park. Big game for Villa, and Villa certainly played out their skin in that game. But at the same time, hey, when we brought Darwin Núñez on, first of all, he didn't finish his chances. But secondly, we needed that focal point. Not in terms of his finishing, but in terms of just being able to get the ball down the field, take it, play it, move. That just didn't happen. That was really frustrating for me watching on the sideline. And obviously I can't do that. I don't have the ability as a human to be able to do that. But I do have the ability to go, okay, we can get a different profile in because that's not working. Do we need someone to be able to also take some of the goal burden off Salah? Yes. I think that is in the shape of a Sesko, especially for the price. And at the moment, I'd be leaning more towards a Sesko, not because I think Ekitike is bad, just because I guess I'm more excited to see, like, if Liverpool did go down that route. In many ways, it's kind of like saying to Darwin Núñez, you're good, but we needed you to do this. Whereas if we get Ekitike, it's sort of like, you're good, but you weren't Ekitike. And I think Slot knows that. I got to be honest, I think, this summer there's going to be some quite big shifts. I don't think we're going to be able to get an Isak or someone like that. And actually, if I'm being honest, I think both these strikers will probably end up at other clubs. Mainly because I think Liverpool are very good at smoke screens and very good at, moving in a very unusual way, put it that way. They're very good at moving behind the scenes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who ends up where we will end up. If there is any other profile you want me to do on this channel. And, broadly, join the Discord, get in the Patreon. What are you feeling about the title win? Are we too early on transfers? Or is this now the time we've won it? Get on with it. Attract people while you've still got the opportunity, essentially. Let me know in the comments below. Of course, there's also a super chat down there. You can do that. And I appreciate you. I'll see you guys in a while. Much love. Bye.